Happy New Year, and welcome to my first post press conference. It's been a busy start to the year, so I saw some of you yesterday at Bratna, where I was very encouraged by the positive tenor of the discussions. Earlier I was in Europe meetings with British and European leaders, and also caught up with Singapore's Prime Minister Lee on the way home. Today Cabinet had its first meeting for the year, as well as some specific agenda items. We discussed the international outlook and our priorities for the year. Obviously enough recent events have heightened political uncertainty and international uncertainty. President Trump's decision to withdraw from the Trans-Pacific Partnership was not unexpected, but it is still a disappointment to us after all the hard work that has gone into negotiating the TPP agreement. A number of other TPP countries have expressed strong commitment to the agreement. I expect the remaining TPP ministers to meet over the next few months to consider the possible next steps, and I've asked Trade Minister Todd McClay to prioritise this. Also note the President's comments today about negotiating bilateral deals. New Zealand has always been interested in close trade ties with the US, whether this is through agreements such as the TPP or through bilateral deals. I've asked Todd McClay to travel to the US to meet with the new US trade representative once they are confirmed. How all this plays out remains to be seen. But what international uncertainty highlights is the importance of continuing to build and strengthen our economy, and New Zealand will remain a positive advocate for open trade. We begin the year with the economy growing solidly, the government's books in good shape, and unemployment around 4.9%. But of course, as illustrated by these events, we can't afford to be complacent. Shocks seem to be now part of the landscape. We also know that although New Zealand is performing better than most countries economically, we face some quite significant challenges. One of our priorities this year will be to continue to ensure that low-income New Zealanders share in the benefits of economic growth. You've seen the Workplace Relations and Safety Minister Michael Woodhouse announced a short time ago that the minimum wage will be lifted from $15.25 an hour to $15.75 an hour from 1 April. This is just one more step by the government to assist those on lower incomes. In recent years, we've increased benefit rates for families for the first time in over 40 years, increased working for families for the lowest income families, and invested more in programs designed to get New Zealanders off benefits and into work. The increase in the minimum wage means that since 2008 we've increased the minimum wage by $3.75 an hour, or 31%. Over the same period, inflation has been around 14%, which means that real incomes for those on the minimum wage have increased by around 17% since we came into office. This year's increase will put extra money in the pockets of almost 120,000 workers. Of course, adjusting the minimum wage requires balancing the interests of those who are employed and those who are unemployed. An increase benefits those with jobs, but can put jobs at risk and can make it harder for those seeking work to find employment. With unemployment down to the lowest level since the global financial crisis, advice from officials is that this increase will have a minimal impact on job growth. A bigger increase would, of course, benefit those in secure employment more, but could reduce the chances of the unemployed finding jobs. We think we've over time struck about the right balance. As you know, I won't be attending the Waitangi Day commemorations at Waitangi on February the 6th, but I am travelling to Waitangi on February the 3rd to meet with senior Māori leaders in the Iwi Chairs Forum. I'll be accompanied by a significant number of ministers because this provides an opportunity for ministers to engage with the Crown's treaty partners on issues of importance to Māoridom. And of course the Iwi Chairs Forum is one that we've been attending now for 5 or 6 years. It's the largest gathering of Iwi leadership from around the country. It occurs several times a year, so both ministers and iwi are very familiar with the interaction. On Waitangi Day itself, I've accepted an offer from Ngāti Whātua to attend Waitangi Day celebrations at the Ōrākei Marae, a special place for Māori. From there I will go to Ōkahu Bay and then to Hawani Watiti Marae in West Auckland. Finally, I've seen some speculation that I'll be announcing the election date today. That's not the case, but I do expect to announce it fairly shortly once I've had an opportunity to inform my caucus colleagues. In terms of my activity this week, I'm in Wellington tomorrow, in Christchurch and Auckland on Thursday, and back in Wellington on Friday. Next week, Cabinet will meet on Tuesday because of Auckland Anniversary Day. I'll be at Karaka on Monday, and on Wednesday we will have an all-day caucus meeting at Premier House. Any questions?
On the TPP, is it feasible to have both the TPP amongst the remaining 11 partners and a bilateral with the US?
It may be feasible. Both of them, I think, would be quite a significant challenge to work out how to alter the TPP so that it can work for the remaining countries, if that's what's required. And as I think President Trump's made clear, any bilateral deals are attractive to us in concept, but as he's made clear, he would expect it to be significant benefits for the US.
So do you think there'd be major surgery required if it became a deal just of the remaining 11?
Well, that's what's under consideration right now. I mean, that's to a large extent a technical question about it. I mean, one of the long term, there is one view about this that in the long term the US may want to be part of the TPP or a TPP type agreement, and therefore continuing it on in its current form with the already negotiated US positions in it would make that more likely in the future. But look, that's just one school of thought at the moment. I think there's a lot of water to go under the bridge to sort out the best path ahead.
Does that mean you're playing a sort of wait?
11 members are all in favour of moving forward with it?
Well, look, there's indications that I describe as a bit more positive than we might have thought. In the first place, certainly the discussions I had, for instance, with Prime Minister Lee in Singapore indicated that they are keen to see the advancement of trade in the region, just as we are. And then we had statements from Prime Minister Abe of Japan last week, which were quite a lot stronger than he'd made before, about a desire by Japan to continue, even if the US isn't part of it.
Does that sort of argue for playing a waiting game effectively? Getting back to your comments, before that follow-up question around, US might over the longer term be prepared to look at this under a future administration, maybe.
Well, it's one argument for maintaining it in its current form. We've yet to, but I think in the alongside that, there's the argument that there'd be gains from it anyway, even if in the future the US weren't going to sign up to it. So that's again what's under consideration. But again, I think there'll be at the moment, an overriding high level will to find some way of advancing free trade. And I think the other thing that's important here is that we have a vehicle for ongoing constructive engagement of the US in the Asia Pacific. Because one of the arguments for it always was that it engaged the US's capacity for stability as an engine of growth more closely in this region, and if this isn't a vehicle right now, then we'd still want to see them engaged.
If you're looking at a bilateral agreement though, how far up the priority list would New Zealand realistically be though? I mean, we're a relatively open economy, or we are an open economy. What can we offer to the US in a bilateral deal?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we've always wanted some sort of bilateral deal. The administration, it's only made a few initial statements about it, but they, I think, made it clear, one, that it's an idea they've got to do it with 11 other countries. One of the smaller ones, I suppose, would be down the list, but easier to deal with than some of them from the US point of view. On the other hand, they've made it clear, consistent actually, with their political rhetoric, that they'd expect America to come out of any deal ahead of the other partner.
So do you see this
So do you
as
see
a
this as
divide and rule tactic by the United States?
Oh, no, I think they're fulfilling political undertakings they've made. On the one hand, on the other hand, they've got to find a way forward. They have I think the complicated task now of renegotiating NAFTA, and I think you'll find they'll, over time as they work their way through that process, it'll help sort out for our longer term benefit what they really do think about the practicalities of trade agreements.
So how realistic then do you see a bilateral agreement with the US? I mean, it's obviously something that had been talked about before the TPP came to fore, but how realistic is it?
Oh, look, if you ask me today, I think there's a pretty low chance of that happening in a form that we'd find satisfactory. But we wouldn't want to rule it out any more than we'd want to rule out other versions of progress on free trade with TPP or not. Bear in mind, it's not the only game in town for us. We've got the European Union discussion going on. You've got this RCEP agreement in Southeast Asia, which up to now has been on a bit of a slow burn, but you might find the political will for that to pick up speed if TPP isn't going to proceed. And then you've got even with TPP, sort of say the surprisingly positive attitude of Japan to moving ahead with a trade agreement that won't include the US.
So is that going to be your priority realistically rather than pursuing that bilateral? And I know Minister McClay's going over, but do you see that as a more realistic option, renegotiating with the remaining partners?
Well, look, it's very early stages, but from seeing the statements by Malcolm Turnbull, Prime Minister Abe, and the Prime Minister of Singapore, just those sort of, and our own view about it would add up to making an effort to find out what we can do with TPP rather than just dropping it and waiting and hoping to get a call about a bilateral agreement sometime.
But in the US, your predecessor said that if the US didn't sign up to the TPP, it would risk ceding some of its influence in the Pacific to China. Is that a view that you share? And if so, is that something that the US should think about when it's getting involved in this region?
Well, that was one of the reasons that we advocated the agreement. So I do share the previous Prime Minister's view. I see a statement today by Senator John McCain to exactly that effect. So that's why I've indicated we'd be interested in preserving the option or finding other ways of the option of TPP or finding other ways of encouraging the engagement of the US in the Asia Pacific. And you can see that China hasn't been slow to spot the opportunity with the President Xi giving a speech at Davos as an advocate of free trade. So I'd expect that we'll hear more from them on that.
If the US isn't going to be part of TPP, why shouldn't New Zealand become more aligned with China?
Well, we're not saying we shouldn't. The fact is we have developed quite rapidly a substantial trade relationship with China off the back of the free trade agreement. They're a bigger trading partner than the
Is
US.
our future lying now with China?
Well, it always has to a significant extent. I think here you've got the additional overlay of the regional stability and regional leadership that the US has provided in the past, and we've always been keen to see alignment of the trade and other interests with the US. That's just going to be a bit harder now.
Wouldn't we be better off just waiting until Trump's gone? Because if any bilateral deal with him would put America first, we'd have to give up on Farmac and other bits and pieces. Wouldn't it be best just to stand back?
Well, we've yet to see what they mean by a bilateral agreement, but it could mean all of those things, and if it did, it wouldn't be that attractive. But in the meantime, I think you find with the other countries, you know, the indications of statements in the last few days is that any number of them feel pretty invested in it, for its economic benefit, but equally, I think invested in it from the point of view of kind of common action that's going to help with the relationship with both China and the US for different reasons. So there's quite a bit of investment in it, and New Zealand's been very invested in it. So finding some kind of path with the TPP is something worth putting effort into.
What do you make of President Trump's suggestion that if he does bilateral deals with countries like New Zealand, he might form a 30-day out clause basically if we misbehave?
Well, that's one aspect of it we would find unattractive.
Just back on
If you did
China.
on the TPP, under the current agreement, you need 85% of GDP, so you'd have to rewrite it. How much would that set it back in terms of it? Presumably it would have to be re-ratified by all the countries and so on.
Well, look, these are questions we can't answer right now. Ratification processes are continuing in a number of countries, including here. So that's really, you know, the technical people have to tell us what changes would need to be made, and then we have to decide whether they're feasible or not feasible, I suppose. So you'll see that discussion unfold over the next 3 to 6 months. Certainly it's a priority for us and for our Trade Minister to get a read on the mood of the participants and to get as much technical advice as we can reasonably get so we can make those sorts of decisions.
And taking out the US market, I mean, you're losing, you know, almost 2/3 of the market there. Is it still worthwhile pursuing with these smaller markets?
Look, but the sort of high level advice is that it would be. Generally, we found with our trade agreements, they can do better than your sort of official cost-benefit calculations. So for the reasons I've outlined, we maintain our interest. Yes, we think there's economic gain in it, but we've got to go back and check that. We think in the longer term interests of, you know, small open economies who want a world that's open to trade, then being able to make progress in this respect would be a good thing.
Looking at that sort of tension there between the United States on one side and China on the other, could that kind of trade war be good for a trading nation like New Zealand in that we have, you know, a degree of leverage with both sides having some interest in trading with us?
Well, we wouldn't want to see a trade war in the usual sense of what it means, of people erecting barriers and trying to outbid each other in that respect. But if there's genuine interest from either China or the US in open trade arrangements, then we're always up for the discussion.
Yeah, so you're interested in trade tension in terms of having two competitors maybe bidding for countries?
Well, the US has just opted out of that. So there isn't really two of them bidding, and we've yet to see what their alternative offer would be in the form of these bilateral deals, but the initial indications are that that'd be a bit of a challenge.
On the other side of that coin, do you think that getting closer to China on trade might cause a little bit of friction with the US and some of the other aspects, maybe the military type relationship, given the new administration?
Look, I wouldn't want to prejudge what the US would think, even what they think about our current relationship with China, which is closer than most developed countries. So I think we've just got to wait and see how these things unfold. Clearly they've made a judgment about the relevance of TPP to their traditional stability that they provided in the Asia Pacific. That's the US judgment that they've made. We just get, as a small country, just get to work with the effects of that.
Has there been any progress upgrading the free trade agreement with China? John Key talked about that last year.
Yes, and he did a good job of negotiating with the Chinese government to get started on that upgrade. But we need to see how the negotiations actually unfold.
Is that something that will be more important to do, focus on, than try and get a bilateral with America?
Well, aspects of it will be more important to some industries. I suppose it sits within a well understood framework where there's been some real progress. The TPP represents, potential, bigger long-term potential gains, which is why it's worth persisting with them. But again, we've got to keep all this in the context of the wider range of trade agreements. I mentioned the EU one, the Gulf states moving along positively by the look of it, and 2 or 3 years down the track, the possibility of the UK agreement.
Just on the minimum wage, what sort of advice have you had on how many jobs would have been created if you'd had a lower minimum wage increase? Because that minimum wage actually has increased more